And, so I went in there. But when COVID hit, they weren't doing nearly much then, but, they just didn't survive it. Well, the journal, the one that John did, they can make more money than all that money that the government was giving than working, so.
Yeah.
And if ultimately the company that owned it, sold it to somebody else. And it last, I guess last Sunday, went in there. And I've gone to, had to leave with, where's your friend? So I had to stay on there. Are you? There's a someone like round in there somewhere. You know, that's close to my house. I think I might go over there and see what.
You know, you can look at the customer reviews online and see how many city stars they're on.
Yeah.
Of course, it's probably the people that work this one.
Do that.
14 years ago.
I'm not getting you the bad ones unless they don't have that children. There's children.
She looks tall. He doesn't think, I mean, how tall is he? I mean, I was thinking,
Sorry, you have to endure.
It's all right.
Stay with you. They call it sign showing.
You said, what is she, 14?
They could absolutely do it always. I was in there. Come on,
Since I know everything about parenting, I almost said that with a straight face. I did, but yeah, everybody's traveling. Dennis is traveling, and Clay's traveling, so you get the C team. C team. How are you? Handle the people as you walk. Cool. Thank you, sir. I think that was
You ain't either of the teachers.
I sure ain't. You get on your husband about that. He decided he didn't have anything to offer when he came to parents, so.
That's right, he was like, listen, I gave all these nights of hospital, marriage, and I was just gonna try them.
I'm clean out, so you did well.
So they give you like the exact right amount? Well, you knew one.
I knew one, yeah. I guess I got I know.
That's a little hot.
You know, you're able to kill it.
Oh. Something,
Oh, sorry.
It's like seat manual, like. Hey, if my texts are right, he stopped at 2 Buc-ee's today. Today. I think, or he stopped at one today, but he had beaver nuggets from one another day. Okay, they were probably left over from yesterday, and then he stopped again today. Probably. I told him, I said, when I was traveling around the city. No, hold on. Here's how I talk about it. It's a good fast food burger, but it's not as good as people make it out to be.
However, that you'll appreciate this, we've done our research and we told you. I don't even know if I would do that. But it's literally where I found it on that, okay, so that one way, but it's definitely, but I really like their.
You know more about it than I did. It was just like, he's gonna ignore me and tell me that. Figured you were gonna. We'll get started. Oh, yeah. Like, she's already said a few nefarious things about you.
But I was on time.
You were on time. Absolutely. We are, let's see, we're on page 45 of the book, if you got your book with you, finishing up lesson 8. Both Dennis and Clay are traveling, so let's have a second ago. You get to see teams, sorry about that. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Adam Perry, since he's sitting over there, to lead us in prayer, please, sir.
Bow our heads. Our Father, we're very grateful to spend a moment of time to study your word. We pray that we can set aside the world for just a little while, think about you, think about your words and the wisdom that you've already shared with us, and accept it to our own lives. Help us to change our lives in a way that not only pleases you, but that can spread your word and encourage others to obey you. We pray that you'll be with Logan as he teaches us, that he remembers what he studied, that he gives us your wisdom in a way that we understand it and are willing to accept it. And we pray, dear God, that you give us courage to spread your word in this world. We thank you for all the blessings you give us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, sir. Okay. Getting started. Like I said, we're on lesson 8. Raising my kids to serve the Lord. And I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I just wanted to mention again that I like the progression of this book and how it goes, and it made me think about some passages that we read, fairly often in 2 Peter. Let's see, beginning of verse 5. For this very reason, we make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue and virtue with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, self-control with steadfastness, steadfastness with godliness, godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. When you look at the progressive nature of those qualities and how it adds in, this book very much falls in line with it, because we're all the way into our 8th choice, raising my kids to serve the Lord. But if you didn't do what lesson 1 says, believing in God yourself, then you have no hope of raising your kids to serve the Lord. You know, same thing with becoming a Christian, growing as a child of God. So you look at the progression that this has with it. And whether you're as we've said, a parent right now, raising young kids, an older parent, somebody who's already done it and proved how it is, like this guy.
Still working on it.
Yeah, you're just about done there. Or you're like this guy and you're passing that knowledge on to the next one who's got his own, family growing right now. And we all have a role in it. We all have a role in this. If you have no kids and don't ever plan on having kids, your friends do, and they could use some encouragement. They could use some support. And I love the way this book progresses with that. So I just want to start by asking what stood out to you from our conversation on Sunday?
Well, something you just said to me, so I will tell you, and I've told people this a million times, we didn't raise our kids ourselves. This church did, right? I mean, they're Bible school teachers, and even outside the church. I mean, you got to be careful because the schools, the teachers that they're with, but there have been people and there have been individuals, especially at church. It's a village.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really rare to, unless you're going to move out in the middle of Alaska, out in the woods somewhere, that people don't have influences over your children, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't think that you're important, there have been times my kids come home and they're like, "Hey, this guy at church told me this, or this woman, told me this, or said this to me, and that was really special." Or
cool.
I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes it's the littlest thing, or it's the littlest comment, that you say to them that affect them and make them remember it. And so everybody plays a part.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if I could go, "Yep, I did all that," but no, that's not how it works. It never works that way.
Well,
So
don't downplay it too much. You're the primary one there.
I'm just thankful for the village.
But you're right.
I'm thankful for the village I have around me.
Yeah.
As a parent, make sure you have a village.
I just got a text from Clay. He reminded me he's listening. He said a couple of times, and I said to him, "Hey, if you see my kid out of line," he said the same. If you see my kid out of line, take care of it. Right? We've kind of given each other that green light because it does take that, and I think that's a pretty common thing we see now is adults are kind of hesitant to correct other people's kids for whatever reason, but to have that freedom and that flexibility with those you love and trust that you're around, I think goes a long way. Because my kids are not perfect, and they will do things incorrectly when I'm not around. I've had some occasions where people have come up and say, "Hey, let me share with you what happened in Bible class," or "Hey, I heard this or this," and I appreciate that. And the inverse of that, though, is if you're not careful, it's real quick to be very defensive. Not my kid, right? Not my kid. And I try to impress the things that would help that sort of thing. When I was young as a parent, with Cooper specifically, I remember when he was real young, I really tried to impress upon him the importance of telling the truth. I think it's so important because you never know when a situation might come up where somebody tells me you said something or you did something. I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to ask you, "Did you?" If you lie to me all the time, every time, I won't be able to believe you. But if you're always truthful and always honest, then I got your back, and it's easier in that scenario. What else stood out from Sunday?
This is not kind of a Sunday thing, but one of the most memorable things for me is I remember as a Bible school teacher when I generationalized myself. I had taught a young man, and then I taught his child.
Yeah.
You're old then,
Uh-huh.
but it's still a momentous. You never forget.
Sure, absolutely. I remember so many of my Bible class teachers I had growing up. Very special, the impact that they had. What else stood out to you on Sunday? One thing that stood out to me was how we talked about the generational effect. In that, you may not realize the impact you're having. And I love these pictures, and I think it might have been Dennis that shared it one time where there was a video where a couple sitting together, and then their kids come and gather behind them for a picture, and then their kids come and gather behind them, and then their kids come, and it's just, before you know it, it's 100+ people just like that. and the impact that you can have on multiple generations down the road is very big. I look at my family specifically. My mother and father were members of the church. Their parents were not. I say were not. My grandmother was baptized in her 80s. And so you never don't underestimate the impact you might have on those older than you as well while we're talking about this. There's some stats that go around, and there's also a lot of refuted stats, but the general consensus is true and pretty well agreed upon. And this lesson talks about the impact that parents have a lot, and it very specifically hones in on the fathers. Why do you think it hones in on the fathers a lot? Say that again? Of the household. One of their main charges and responsibilities is to be the spiritual leaders of your family. I looked it up, and like I said, there's stats all over the place, but one of the commonly agreed upon things is that when a father leads the family and is a Christian and maybe takes the kids to church, but the mom doesn't, then those kids are much more likely to remain faithful when the mother does and the father doesn't. Okay, and that's in no way to disparage mothers. That's actually to charge the fathers that you have a big job, you have a big responsibility, and there's a big impact that comes with that. And I think that's something that as fathers, one, we need to take seriously. As mothers, be an encouragement to those fathers in doing that. That's something that I think you can't undervalue. Now, where we left off on page 45, we were in Deuteronomy 6. So go ahead and turn there.
Real quick, I posted something on our page years ago, but it said 4 generations fade. 1, parents don't make church a high priority for their kids. 2, kids grow up and make it less of a party for their kids. 3, those kids grow up and make it no party for their kids. And then 4, those kids grow up with no concept of God.
Yeah.
So it just gets 50% less each time.
Big of an impact you can have positively, you can really stunt things very easily just by taking the easier road. One thing that Clay has said several times is it's simple, not easy. Right? So the concepts, the ideas, the things we talk about in general, as far as being a Christian, are fairly simple concepts. Put God first. Okay. Serve Him like He said to serve. Okay. Be kind to one another. All right. Got it. And how easy is that? That's where the really rubber meets the road. Deuteronomy 6, beginning in verse 4, says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today be on your heart." Verse 7 says, "You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise." When I read that, what picture do you get?
This is the most important thing to get up and do every single day of their life.
Okay, consistency, extremely key. As is pointed out here in the middle of the page, although kids are resilient, there's one thing they cannot handle: hypocrisy, and they can spot it a mile away. How many of you who are parents have been called out on your hypocrisy by your kids? I have. I'm not going to say where Brent was pointing. He halfway raised his hand, but it stopped. I have, and as I think about it, I could probably say, well, yeah, but you didn't understand this situation, or there was some more that went into it when No, they were right. They were right. If I was, short or harsh one time, and I get on the Cooper, well, Dad, you did. You're right. And how willing and I guess just are we willing to humble ourselves to admit that and to apologize for that? I need to be better at it. My wife nodding. Did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say too, sometimes being humble is almost more of a testament, right? Because it shows that we all fall short of grace, right? We all mess up, and what separates us sometimes, an example we can set is, are we grateful about it? Can we humble ourselves and say, oh, yeah. And I mean, I know with my niece, like, they aren't really churchgoers or anything like that, but we've had conversations about it because she wonders why is that so easy for me?
Yeah.
Or, you know, and it's not always, it's not, but, you know, I'm able to have those conversations now with her. Like, she knows, like, hey, I think someone like this on Wednesday night, can we go to church or Sunday morning? But she knows those things, and even if you have kids or you're adjacent to them, you can still minister to them in that way. And I think being humble is a huge part of that.
Yeah. Who wants to share something their kids call them out on? Anybody? Yeah, I knew that would be it. That's not fun. Go ahead. Oh, he's right there. He can validate. Yelling.
I think tone, like, that's like the worst thing. You know,
Yeah.
if somebody attacks you, your defense mechanism is, okay, I'm gonna yell back.
Yeah.
You know, without thinking, you're gonna do it.
That was last week.
And we are probably the quickest to get short with those we're the closest to. Kids, spouses. Why is that? I mean, they're the ones we love the most. So why would that be? Okay, he says they irritate you the most. What's that?
We think they'll be there forever.
Okay, we take for granted the fact that they love us. We take for granted the fact that they're always there. Not to be morbid or anything, but have you ever been around somebody who recently lost a spouse? Oftentimes the regret, I wish I had never done this. I wish I had let that go. I wish I had, fill in the blank, right? It changes your perspective quite a lot when they're not there. But when you've been married for almost, 20 years for us and many more for a lot of you guys, it's easy to take those sort of things for granted. All right.
Oh, you
Yeah.
also let your defenses down, whereas, I don't want to say you're putting on a show for those around you, but you're on your best behavior when you're out in public. You know, you get home and your defenses go down, so that's why it's just easier to not be thinking, not that that's a good thing, but,
Yeah.
you're just home, you're relaxed, you're not on, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, look, I will speak for myself. I don't say or speak the exact same way when I'm at dinner with the CEO of the company that I do when I'm getting a burger over a fire with Adam there. Now, I don't get derogatory or anything, but it's just a different environment, right? You're like you said, you're a little more relaxed. Good point. One of the things that is pointed out here, it says, mark the words you and your in these verses. Before Moses ever said a word about teaching them diligently. I looked at it, it was 14 times in these 3 verses where he covered or said you or your, meaning this is on you. You are responsible for this. You have control. You have to focus on it. Nobody can do this for you. You really have to dive in yourself. He goes on here to highlight that Moses says, if you're trying to teach your kids about God without loving God yourself and putting him first, it's not going to happen. Forget it. Every home's either God-centered or self-centered, and your kids are quick to figure it out. And while you can preach to them until you run out of words, your walk will overshadow your talk. Now, that doesn't downplay the importance of talk. You do have to teach. Go ahead.
It's funny, I left my house this morning, I'm traveling on work at 6:30, been working all day, just made it time to come here.
Yep.
And I called my daughter right before my family, and my daughter goes, you going to church, Dad, right? I'm like, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to church. It's hard. That's the thing, is to read over all this stuff, the consistency, that's hard.
Yeah.
But what's also hard? Is you don't do it, and your kids aren't Christian. That's also hard. So it's choose your heart. That's one of the things we say in our family,
Sure.
hard raising kids, but it's also hard raising kids that aren't raised.
How old are your kids? Just curious.
15, 13, and 9.
Okay. 15, 13, and 9. I don't know, you might with the 15-year-old already be feeling this, but I've got a 14-year-old and an almost 12-year-old, 14 is almost 15. it's already starting to show up in my brain. They're not going to be here forever, right? I'm already seeing that. Like, my daughter's over at friends' houses all the time. My son's over at soccer or the girlfriend's house or this or that. I'm like, and like we found ourselves a couple times over the last few weeks.
Empty nesters now.
We're staring at each other on the couch. We're like,
What do we do?
hey.
Guess we'll watch Wheel of Fortune.
That's pretty much what it is.
I'm really good at it too.
And it's a little bit of, hey, I'm Logan, I'm your husband. And I say that jokingly, but again, that does emphasize the importance of what Shannon pointed out, is the relationship that you have with your spouse. It's not just we're going to stick together and not get divorced. It's no, we're going to be in this, right? We're going to be a part of this. We're going to work hard together.
So, Ephesians chapter 6, start with verse 1, right? So, by the way, it's 14 going on 30, not 14 going on 30.
Yes.
No, it's 11 going on 30.
Oh, there you go.
Y'all who know summer know what I'm talking about.
But in chapter 6, and this is something I've always, when I read this, it's always stuck out to me. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth." Now, it's been talking about moms and dads up to this point, right? And then it says, "And you fathers." It's not talking to moms anymore, right? It's like, dads, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Why do you think they didn't tell the women not to provoke their children to wrath? Are men more susceptible
we're more
to that, right?
Yep.
Do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Then put that on the mom. Put that on the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that one day I've got to go and give an account for myself, and how my children are raised will fall directly on me. I have to answer for that, right? So that's great. And that doesn't mean that in my household that Cecily didn't do most of the like for Bible classes, right? But it was something that we discussed, we went through, we'd talk about, we would do and she would do it. And a lot of that may be because of work. I didn't have the banker's hours. I worked really weird hours. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it was like, hey, Tuesday night's coming up. We need to make sure Bible stuff's done. Will you go through it with them to make sure they're, and we would talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not saying I want to make sure that everybody understands. It wasn't like I was
you were the only one.
Yeah, essentially it was huge. And the thing that I thought was cool was Jenny said something about how through the progression, no one knows God, right? And if you don't do it right. And Proverbs 22:6, it says, "Train up a child in the way that they should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it," right? Which goes along with what I thought she was trying to say, Jenny. I hope I'm right. But anyways, but I've always looked at chapter 6, verse 4, at least, and how specific that is, because he's talking to both in the beginning, but then he's not. Mm-hmm. And so that's really, men need to understand that. You need to understand where you have children, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, long before you get married, right? This is a major part of your role as a husband, as a father. And if you don't realize that, if you don't take that seriously, things will be missed. I'm just curious, and you know, some of the wives, people in here, what are your habits? What do you do as a family to ensure that your kids understand that God is first? What are some of the things you guys do? Anything? I'm looking real practical here.
Pray before eating?
Praying, yeah. Pray before eating. Pray other times, too. It's a habit often of many of us to pray before eating. I think that's a great thing to do. It also becomes a habit when there's disaster, problems, scary stuff going on. When something goes well, when your kid aces a test, when they, hit a game-winning home run, whatever, do you pray and thank God for that? I'll admit, I don't very much. I really don't. And that's something I'd like to be more regular, is reaching out to God. What else?
I think you say that. you say, did you pray about it?
Okay?
As a question, you know, like,
They come to you with something that's heavy or,
you know, I mean, I try to remind Eli that if that can be your first thing, then the next feeling might be better. You know, I mean, if you just, but, of course, we all don't do that, but I try to say, did you pray?
well, and I'll just offer this, and maybe this is just me, but have you ever prayed and felt worse afterwards?
Guilt?
I haven't. I mean, maybe it's possible, but I'd have a hard time understanding how that would even be possible. If you pray, you turn it over to God, you ask for His help, you share what's going on, in general, things just at least feel better. Some of the anxiety comes off. Yes.
I was gonna say, as far as like, how do you do that? With, my father, I said to do, again, he was trying to be ready in season and out of season, instead of waiting to just find out what was gonna be at the Bible study that quarter at church. He'd go ahead, I said, and read up his commentaries on his own.
Okay.
Did up in his own studying.
Mm-hmm.
If he finds like, for me to stay interested and motivated to do this, you know, I need to be learning too.
Mm-hmm.
We found that helps him. I felt a lot when one of us would come up and ask him a question that was totally unexpected, but that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that's what kept me, I said, learning, I said, like, respect with how I did that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could go to him, I said, he had the answer, or I could find him. Instead of having to go up to someone with a question, I'm like, well, I don't know. I haven't studied that. And I don't know how I said to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody was talking about humility a while back, right, in this class. And so, humility is huge. And if you can teach your children humility, good luck. But if you can teach them humility, that's really
It's
huge.
not easy, huh?
So think about it. So when you pray, right, you can do different prayers for different things. You can thank God for the many blessings. You can thank Him for creating the earth. But most times people go to God when there's something wrong, right? And they pray and they ask for help. That shows a sign of humility, right? That I understand there's a creator, there's a God. And so teaching your children humility, and also teaching them, like, we want to pray and thank God when we hit home runs and score touchdowns and, you know, do all that. Teach them to thank God when they bomb a test. Teach them to thank God when they strike out. Teach them to thank God when they don't get on the field because the coach decided they weren't good enough. And then teach them how to work hard, right? Humility. Teach them then to thank God, right? So, I heard this one time that this guy was saying, it was a veteran, and he was living on the streets, and they were interviewing him, and he was living in a cardboard box, right? Literally living in a cardboard box. And they were like, how awful this is. You know, you served your country, you fought, you know, in a war, you did all this, and you're living in a cardboard box. And he goes, yeah, but I got a cardboard box. That guy don't even have that. I'm thankful for that cardboard box, right? Humility. Be thankful. Now, he should never live in a cardboard box. I'm not saying that, but it's a mindset, right? It's a huge mindset. Are you an optimist?
Decision to look at the positive.
Are you an optimist or a pessimist, right? You can teach your kids to always see the good, then you're winning. If you always see the bad, then you're losing.
We have a habit often as a society in general to look at what we don't have. You know, look at what others have that we don't. You know, you got a new house, man. God, I would love to have a new house. That would be awesome. I've got a great house. Right, or Andrew's got some killer shoes. I mean, he always does, man. I love shoes like that. And we're always looking at what we don't have.
Right.
Until you turn around and what's the old adage? The person doesn't have a foot. Oh, right. You see the other side of it. I see that at work all the time. I'm sure Steph could relate to this. And Chrissy is people say, oh, you know, I don't want to complain because I see so and so over there. They're dealing with much worse than me.
But they're at a physical therapist in a nice building, getting help.
Yeah.
Do you see all the pluses?
So it's easy to compare on either side.
Teach
right?
your children.
I don't have what they have, or I'm not near as bad off as they are.
Right.
you know, but comparison's a dangerous thing.
If you, I'm gonna embarrass somebody. If you want to see an eternal optimist, talk to Jan Morris, right? Because she sold my home, right? And I'm sitting there calling her up like the world is ended. And she's like, oh, it's fine. She's like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, oh, Jan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna be talking about my eyebrow falling off.
But no, if you can teach that, if you teach humility, if you can teach to see the good and the bad, and you know, if you don't hit the home run and you strike out, and you teach them to be thankful they had the opportunity to swing that bat 3 times. How cool is that,
a lot
right?
more in faith and success, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Learn a lot more in failure.
yeah, that you're going to change their entire world and their outskirts and how they think about God, right? And so, anyways, I'm sorry.
What is something? I always feel weird when I say this sort of thing, but I do it often. Set Christianity aside for a second. Sorry, I know that's weird. What's something you wanted to pass on to your kids? What's something you wanted to teach them? What's something you wanted them to learn? What's something you wanted them to be good at? Anything?
What did I teach you?
You better say something. Don't say nothing. Yes, sir.
That giving up is not okay.
Okay.
It's not okay.
Okay.
Any circumstance. We don't give up.
Yeah. What else?
Take care of their bodies.
Take care of your physical health. That's important. How do you emphasize that? Or how do you get that lesson across to them? I know because I live with you, but just share.
Basically, you wear what you eat. So,
Okay.
you know, you can just tell by the way, like, food affects you in
Okay.
so many different ways. It affects your mental health, it affects you physical.
And have you had this conversation with them? Okay.
Yeah. Like,
What else?
yeah, absolutely. Because there's certain foods that can really make you cranky. You know, like dyes can make you cranky. Lots of sugar can make you cranky. You know, also foods, things like that can really.
I thought if you were cranky, you were supposed to eat a Snickers. That's what the commercial says. Yeah. Hey.
No, just nutrition
Yeah.
and, you know, taking care of your body, being active, moving, being thankful because your body is a temple.
Yeah. So that's something that
God, and so like you know, you take care of yourself.
that's something that was important to you, and that's something that you've spent time sharing and emphasizing. I've got pictures and videos of Summer at 3 years old doing push-ups. It's really cute. She's pretty good.
And burpees.
And burpees. Yep. She has no video of me doing those. But something that was important that she wanted to share. For me, I'm a sports guy. I love sports. I wanted my kids to. I was really careful. Like, they didn't have to be the best ever. They didn't have to that be everything. But I learned a lot from sports. Whether I was really good or whether I wasn't, I learned a lot, and I wanted them to learn a lot. And so I wanted to teach that. So I took some time to coach both of them, and be involved that way. The point I'm making here is if there's something that's important, if there's something that you want to pass on, you're going to spend some time doing it. You're going to spend some time talking about it. You know, with Cooper, trying to show him how to hit a baseball or do something with soccer. I took him out there and I showed him. We watched videos and we talked about it. And after a game, hey, how'd you feel about the game? Did you have fun? I always ask that because, you know, that sometimes we get a little carried away, and we forget that that's what it's about. And then, okay, what did you think? Oh, well, this and this and this. Okay, what would you do different? And just talk through those sort of things. It goes a long way. Yes, sir.
Going with that, and something I was going to say before, all those things that we said we wanted to pass on are not things you just randomly bring up. Your kids would be like, what? You know, if your kid plays a sport and you've never tried to help them do it at all, and then all of a sudden they mess up and you're like, you want me to show you how to do this? And they're like, do you know how to do that? Like, if you've never had that conversation, it's weird. I know one thing Clay and I talked about when we had kids, and this is in no way bashing our parents because mine are here, like, but both of us talked about how, and my parents are fantastic Bible students, but it wasn't natural to sit and just have conversations. Like, if ever my parents were like, hey, let's sit down and read Galatians, I was like, why? Like, I mean, like, I thought, like, are we in trouble? Like, are we trying to tell me something? Like, what's happening? And Clay kind of had a similar experience. Now, we didn't talk about it or talk about a sermon or a Bible lesson coming up for church, but not just on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So we tried, and we were in no way perfect with it. But we have always tried when we had any conversations relating to them to pull something from the Bible, and not even a scripture, but like a person. If you're going through this, well, did you know this person went through that? And you can see it when they start to experience those problems because they have a point of reference. It's not even just a verse on a page. It's someone they know went through it, and they have that to relate to. And when you have those conversations normally, then it's not so weird when Dad brings up, well, what does God say about this? Like, it's a more natural conversation. Like I see with when you stand up and when you rise and when you take a walk. It's not like, well, on Saturday night when you're getting ready for church, like, let's have this conversation. It's a natural thing you do every day.
It's one thing to hear this and discuss this and be in her position. Pick on you because you've just got an adorable little baby right there strapped to you. Right at the beginning of things, right? What if you're, pick on Julianne, what if you're her parents and you really messed up? You haven't done it so far. Start today, right? Whatever point you're at, start today. I have this same conversation. I've already brought up work once. I'll do it again. We have this conversation with Paige. I should have come in a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, but today's today. Like, here's where we are. Let's start now, right? What can we do today? What can we do the next day? So, and I've had to remind myself of this because I'm feeling that pressure as I've got a high school kid who's about to finish his freshman year, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to have 3 more years than you. Oh, you can go home. I hope. I just hope he does it well. Say that again.
It'll be a false going at first.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the warning. They come back. Yeah.
Only if you don't change the laws.
Yeah. But again, the point there, and Wilson makes this very well, is start today. Wherever you're at, whatever your point you're at, is make some good habits. Discuss that today. Is it our job? This is my last question, and then any other comments you have. Is it our job to raise perfect kids? I hope not. I am bad about this. Stephanie will tell you that I have a problem with expecting perfection of kids way before they should be perfect. Should they ever be perfect? No, none of us are. I'm not. Right? But should we get super upset over something that's spilled by a 3-year-old? 3-year-olds will spill stuff. Like, that's just part of it. And I say that to say, what is our job as parents when it comes to our kids? So if it's not to raise perfect kids, what is our job?
Teach them to do better the next time and learn from their mistakes.
Learn, do better, grow. What else? Say it again. Get them to heaven, right?
Bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord.
Training, right? We want them to be leaders in their home. We want them to bring others to Christ as they grow older. We want them to be good examples. And so first, are we emulating that ourselves? Are we doing that? And then are we teaching them that? It's another thing I've tried to push upon our kids is you're always a leader. Somebody's always watching. Most of the time, you're not even going to know who's watching, but they are. And so what are they going to say about you, about your character? What example are you going to share? That's really important.
But, the funny thing is that if you do it right, it never stops. It changes, right? The dynamic changes huge, right? Which is awesome. At least to me it was. But I was listening to Jenny, or to Craig back here talk, right? Yeah. And but talking about their parents, right? So, and I know they love their parents. I've met both their parents, and they're awesome, right? And I'm betting they're still talking to their parents, and every now and again, the jewel pops through, and they learn something, right? Yeah. Because you never stop learning, ever, right? It's just the whole dynamic changes of it. So if you do it right, they actually care what you think and say and watch. They still watch it.
I don't know where you are with the one sitting next to you. I don't know if your back is a pretty cool guy who he looks up to and calls sometimes.
You'd have to ask him.
It will get there.
No,
no, you're not there with her yet. But I remember that transition really clearly for me is early on, Dad's a superhero. Sometime around middle school, he becomes really dumb to me. Yeah. Of course at 13 I knew it all, right? Then, you know, as you get into your early 20s, okay, you know some things. Then you start really respecting, like, okay, I need to call Dad, right? I need to ask him. To the point, and for me, I was just getting to that point with my dad. Just graduated college. We were having these conversations. The day he died, I called him up to ask him how to hook up a car charger on a battery. And he told me, well, we got it charged, right? And, you know, so that really stands out to me when you say it changes. It does, right? So you got to be able to get through those changes too, because I'm at the point now where I'm an idiot to my kids. And my friends. Yeah.
The things that we say used to be cool 20 years ago, but they're not anymore.
Yeah, my wife has no riz, y'all. No riz. I'll tell you later.
Like, when I was cool back when I was in high school. She's a 13-year-old.
It'll be different by the time your kids get to middle school, so don't even try to learn it yet. Were you about to say something? You had your hand up, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, basically, after, when you mentioned spilling the cup and expecting kids to be perfect and all that stuff, how we react is such a huge example to them, because how we react to them spilling something or making a small mistake or a big mistake is how they're going to react to people in their life. So if we, you know, get mad and yell at them for spilling juice on the floor when they're 3 years old versus, it's okay, let's go get something to clean it up. Here, come help me clean it. You know, it really softens the whole experience for them so that they don't feel like that they're a failure or they don't feel stupid or whatever it is. And so, and that goes on to, like, Summer, she spills everything on her clothes, and everything she wears, she wants it to be white. But she spills everything on her white clothes. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, we're not buying white anymore. But also, it's like, you know what, it is what it is. It's fun. You know, and so, like, but I don't want to yell at the kids and make them feel defeated all the time if they make a mistake, because then I don't want them to turn around and yell at their sibling or yell at one of their friends or even when they're a parent.
Their kids.
Yeah, and yell at their kids or their spouse or whatever for just small day-to-day mistakes.
Yeah. Real quick before we finish up, this piece of paper that was passed out, this was something that Dennis put together. I just want to read through it real quick and just kind of give the perspective of the home as parents. First, it says, serve God as husband and wife in the home, as children are always watching. Again, they're watching your actions way more than listening to what you're saying. I promise you that. Don't get so involved in outside work or activities that you're rarely home. Have dinner together every night if at all possible. To me, having a specific time when you know you're going to get together, I think is really important. They're always pray before eating a meal, he says. Let the children see you reading your Bible, getting your Bible lesson, talking about spiritual things. Don't be fake. Start early with discipline. Don't be so permissive on everything your children ask you to do. Don't try to be their best friend. Be their parent. Always listen to them. Show them you love them. Keep your word. Never lie. As parents, always present the united front. To present a united front, you have to have a united front. To have a united front, you got to communicate. Always have to communicate. Never discipline with wrath toward your children. Many times, my wife and I have tagged each other out. She sees me blowing up, I got it. I see her blowing up, I got it. Just to that, right? And you got to be aware of those things. And you got to focus on priorities for them to see. Love God first and foremost. Worship every time that the doors are open. Show your love to your mate in front of them. Show your love to your family. Work and provide for your family, but never let it interfere with the other three. I think that's some really good ideas. Yes, ma'am.
Just one thing I don't think anybody says, but I think is important with kids is to apologize to them. I mean, if you do something wrong or when they're dealing in things and you think maybe you messed up, say it. Tell them. Because, like you said, they see a hypocrite just because you changed what you.
That was something that stuck out to me when Brent Mohair shared it one time. It's like we didn't hide disagreements or arguments from our kids, like when they were, disagreeing amongst themselves. But at the end, they saw us fix it and make it right and apologizing on whatever it was.
I don't
I
feel like
never-
parents apologize to their kids.
Yeah,
You know, when you got mad about something that you shouldn't have gotten mad about,
Yeah.
well, they can say it.
How empowering is that for them? Oh, well, that's right.
Well, but it also shows a humility in the
Sure.
leader, I think.
Thank y'all very much. I've used it. Sometimes you got inspiration, you know?
I'll be at y'all's house Monday.
Oh, really? You on our roof again?
Bring in sticky shoes. Thank you.
I do think
I was gonna pick on you. That's pick on you. I was like, hey, no, her parents are here. We've been combating that. Well, they asked them that we had to verify what's going on in your life. What do we? She called. I'm not gonna argue with you there, I guess.
I don't argue if they're like,
Thank you for the shout out.
Did she just hand you a bill?
No, it's mail. They called me and told me that y'all had mail, so I went by and got it.
and the funny part is, changed it with the post box.
Oh, I'm sure. They don't always pay attention.
But yeah, it's one of these things where I'm not a huge fan, right? And the reason why is, and I don't think, and I get it too, I get what
I
they're
would
thinking.
admit, you're